Good morning, and thank you for joining me for today's midweek reflection. Tomorrow is the Feast of the Ascension. It's quite a special moment in the Christian calendar, and it's the point at which we remember how in the Acts of the Apostles, Jesus took his disciples up to the top of Mount Olivet. And the account in the Acts of the Apostles says that he literally ascended. He rose up, he went up into the skies, into the heavens, and returned to his heavenly Father. I think many people would say that they find mountains quite important, quite special places. A lot of people would say there's nowhere that they feel more intensely tuned in and close to the glory of creation than they do so as at the top of a mountain. Many people will also say that they feel very intensely aware of God's presence more up a mountain than anywhere else, perhaps including being in church. There's a little story about a man who lived his whole life in a clearing in a forest. And this clearing was quite small. It was just about 100 yards across. And so he had no sense of perspective in the world. He had no knowledge of the world beyond this little clearing. But evidently at some point an explorer found him. And the explorer took him up to the top of a high mountain. And this man was astonished. He was absolutely amazed, because he had no idea that there was this vast world beyond the trees. And he was like a little child in his delight. He was just wondered at the enormity of the great blue sky above him and was astonished at the vastness of the horizon. And so the man loved it so much that he didn't really want to come off the mountain. But eventually the time came when he had to. But when he returned to his place in the forest, he was a changed man, because he saw his world in a completely different context now, having been at the top of the mountain. The account that we read in the Acts of the Apostles seems to suggest that Jesus' disciples didn't want to come off the Mount of Olives either. But then there was this voice that said to them, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking up towards heaven?" And it seems that when the apostles came down from the mountain, they were changed, that they now realised that there was this big, wider world beyond the horizon, and that they now had this immense task of spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to the wider world. I think Ascension is as much about you and me as it is about Jesus. Jesus says this extraordinary thing to us. He says, "Where I am, there you will be also." And so we are invited to look beyond our horizon. And most of all, to understand that there is nobody but us to go out into the world and to share the love of Christ. Our hymn for today is "Crown Him with Many Crowns."